So we're going to talk about how to build your network. And remember, these are teasers. I'm trying to whet your appetite with regards to some of these topics so that you can dig a bit deeper, right? And I encourage you to do so. Who's better at networking, men or women? I didn't say gossiping. I said networking. Sorry. All right. My brand. Amongst the ladies, my brand is destroyed now. Let me rebuild it. Okay, no, here's the thing. According to research, the networks of men, on average, tend to be different to the networks of women. And sorry for this, guys. The networks of men tend to be shallower but wider. Think about it. That's why when you go with your hubby somewhere and you're visiting a mate and then you spend a few hours there, when you're leaving, ladies, you say to your hubby, do you know that your friend George, who you've just been with for the last 3 hours, do you know that he's going into surgery in 2 weeks? And what does the guy say? Oh, we were just talking sports and politics. Right? Ladies, the networks of women tend to be narrower but deeper. Narrower but deeper. Think about it. When a guy meets you, what's the first thing when he meets another guy? What's the first thing he asks? What do you do? Oh, okay, so what do you do? I've had conversations with my wife, and I know she would have interacted with someone multiple times, and I say, so what does the person do? Oh, I don't know, actually. Okay. Because women will tend to ask about the relationships around you. Now, some of the ladies here are like, but Paul, I'm not like that. Not me. Yes, you are the 0.001 who are not like that. And I want to say this to the ladies because I deal with a lot of like women's conferences and things like that. When I say statements like this based on research, don't react and say, well, I'm not like that. Because if you're a leader and you're an influencer, it's important to understand what the majority is like out there so that you can actually learn how to lead and influence them. Does that make sense? And that's why you'll find a lot of us as guys, it's easy for us amongst each other to just be like, yeah, so here's my card. Oh yeah, here's my card. But I find that when I'm coaching ladies and I'm trying to help them in terms of networking, they're like, hey, Paul, I can't just give someone my card just like that. You know, we have to first know each other, first bond. So I want to say something to you. If you want to build your network with all these stakeholders we're talking about, ladies, this is what's been found. Those networks of men that are shallower but wider tend to open more doors for them in terms of careers and in terms of selling. Now, with a lot of women, when they put themselves forward and say, yes, I'll do this, very often there's the fear of being misunderstood, isn't there? Oh, you'll think I'm being forward. Oh, you'll think this, you'll think that. If you look at the top 10 fears that men have and the top 10 fears that women have, do you know that the order and the ranking is different? One of the top fears women have in the workplace is the fear of being judged unfairly, the fear of being misunderstood. What I love about Jesus, very often he would do and say things that were misunderstood, but he still did them because he wasn't need-orientated, he was mission-orientated. He saw what was happening in heaven, he saw what his Father was doing. He says, I do what I see my Father doing it, and then I do it. Heaven was his blueprint. So I want to encourage you, ask the Lord, what is my assignment? Because God anoints you based on your assignment. He anoints you based on your mandate. You can't say like, oh, I'm so anointed to look at porn. Okay? I'm so anointed to... No, then he anoints you, he empowers you to do things that are in line with his agenda for you. And if you're running around doing all sorts of things like a headless chicken and there's no grace for it, you must ask yourself, Lord, is this the right season for me to be doing this? The Bible says we must be like the sons of Issachar who understood the times and the seasons. And I'm saying this because I also want to encourage particularly the women here, because there are lots of women and we need more female entrepreneurs in this nation. Amen. I want to encourage you because women tend to have multiple different seasons in their lives more so than men. in terms of seasons. There's the off-ramping from your career, then there's an on-ramping back to your career, then there's a time of having kids, then there's this, then there's that, and so on. And it's crucial to understand what season you're in and doing the things that are in God's season and timing for your life. All right? So we're talking about networking and how to build your network effectively. If you're that person who's shy and you're afraid to step out and connect with people, ask yourself, what am I afraid of? Because very often what people label as the fear of failure isn't actually the fear of failure. Often it's the fear of being embarrassed, it's the fear of being ridiculed, it's the fear of being mocked. There's someone who's a family friend of ours, he's an American guy, he's about late 60s. And he said to me, Paul, you know what? My dad shamed me when I was playing baseball as a child. I think it was baseball. I remember it was an American sport. I think it was baseball, right? And he shamed me. And he says, as a result of that, I made an inner vow. And my inner vow was, I'll never again place myself in a position where it's possible for people to mock me or ridicule me. And then as a Christian, he spiritualized it. Hey, I don't need to be in the limelight. I'm the support guy in the background. But when he understood that his life was being controlled by this inner vow that he had made, things changed. He's written a great book on entrepreneurship. He runs a successful business, and he does a lot of speaking in front of people today. Some of you are in that situation right now, where based on inner vows that you've made, your life is now controlled by that particular thing, and it's affecting your ability to build an effective network. So what are some of those principles? I want to share with you some of these things, and then we're done. In order to be confident about building your network, ask yourself, what is my unique strength which seems to repeatedly bring customer delight? What is that thing? And one of the ways we can unpack this, ask yourself, what am I the go-to person for? For what am I the go-to person? That's better English. I learned that from Pastor Bill. He once corrected something I wrote. For what am I the go-to person? Okay? When I'm doing this particular thing, people literally have to say, hey, stop, it's supper time now. Because I'm so energized and absorbed when I'm doing that particular thing. What is it? You see, because before you build your network, you have to know why you're doing what you're doing. What do I receive the most compliments for? For what do I receive the most compliments? That's better English. You can tell Pastor Bill that he's still in me.
Still tripping you up.
Even if it's your hairstyle, maybe you're good at just making things look nice. If I was to phone you at 2 a.m., what would you be willing to do at 2 a.m. without complaining or grumbling? If I was to say, please, can you do this? I was trying to help my kids with their life purpose, and I asked them that question. They said, playing computer games? Okay. All right. What is it that you can do with minimal effort, but the results are phenomenal? That's your high leverage activities. Wow. Minimal effort, but the results are phenomenal. You know all those people you look at and you admire? Your Joel Osteens or Joyce Meyer, whoever it is, heroes in the church world, heroes in entrepreneurship, your Richard Branson, etc. Do you know why they're so good? It's not always because they're just naturally good at everything they do. They spend most of their time doing what they're good at. And that becomes their brand. What I found in this country is that a lot of people are known for what they're average at. And that's how we relate to them. They're just known for what they're average at. Often when I'm coaching people, I say, you know what? That thing you really, really love, what is it? And guess what? It's not something like, I need to go and do something completely and radically different in Outer Mongolia. No. Often their purpose in life is a subset of what they're already doing. And then they'll say, Paul, it's when I'm training up potential clients. I love the training aspect of my job. Then I say, what percentage of your time is spent doing that? And they say to me, 13%, 21%. It's never like an even number, if you notice, 19%, okay? And then my job is, how do we take that 19% and take it up to 70%? So that when your brand goes out there, this is what you're known for. And it's what energizes you. And you feel strong when you're doing it. And in that space, you begin to build your network. And these are the practicals around how you actually do it. What are some keys to connecting with customers and stakeholders? I want to give them to you now. Just remember that relationships are built one conversation at a time. So we have to master the art of creating a good conversation, being a good conversationalist. And being a good conversationalist doesn't mean you have to be the big talker. You see, the greatest leaders out there, they don't have all the answers, but they've mastered the art of asking good questions. And you know that sometimes you can be the one where you only say a few words in a conversation and people leave your presence just feeling, wow, he's such a nice guy, hey, such a nice guy. And you're like, what did he say? I don't know, he's just such a nice guy, hey, such a nice guy. What did he actually say to you? He gave me the chance to speak. And he asked me questions that touched my heart. One of the things I find most fulfilling is when I ask people a question they've never been asked before. Because when you ask someone a question they've never been asked before, you get them to do things they've never done before. You know how that happens? When I ask you a question that you've never been asked before, you end up saying things back to me that you've never said before. And because your tongue is a rudder, when you say things you've never said before, you end up doing things you've never done before. And I find it so fulfilling when I speak to people and they say, sure, Paul, yo, that gets me thinking, oh, Paul. One of the best things to do is to be a master of question asking. A master of question asking. Because you end up shaping the conversation. And then afterwards, it's listening to the other person. People who've met Nelson Mandela before, they would say you go in thinking you're about to meet this great man, but you come out of his presence feeling great yourself as a person. The real listener, when you really listen to someone, they always leave your presence feeling more significant as a human being. And that's what we want to do for people. And we've got the power to do it as believers, don't we? There's a grace that's there. There's the fruit of the Spirit, patience. A lot of times people aren't good listeners because they're impatient. They assume they know everything about everyone. My last chapter in Conversing, I don't know if they're still conversing books, the marriage book, is on listening in marriage. But you can apply those principles across the board. One of the best skills to have when you want to be a networker is listening. Okay, let's go a bit deeper. The first thing to do when you want to build your network, have the right tools. Some of you have said like, oh, Paul, yeah, how do I get hold of you? Oh, yeah, Paul, can I have, oh, you've got free stuff on your website. I've got a whole lot of free stuff on paulnyamuda.com and so on. Can I have your card? Can I have your card? With a lot of people, it's like, sorry. S-O-R, another R, and then a Y. I'm sorry. Okay? And then no more Y's. Okay, the point is, if you are planning on building your network, if you are believing God that you're going to be connecting with people today or tomorrow, go with the right tools. I shouldn't be saying this because I don't want to be worked, but I came with a black pen because when people buy my books, I know they'll say, can you sign, please? Can you sign? So I came with a black pen because I was expecting it, that people will buy my books and I'll need to sign for some people, hopefully not too many people, right? I came with business cards because it's a quick way of getting people onto your website. They can download free stuff and it will help them. Does that make sense? So have the right tools when you're building your network. Have an updated CV. Because if you're expecting to meet someone tomorrow, they must see your business profile. Because they're going to ask you, what's your business about? I've got a brochure with all my seminars and everything because I know as I go into a month, more people are going to be asking, Paul, what do you do? Paul, what do you do? Here it is. I don't have to start scratching my head. Make sense? So are you in faith that you'll be meeting those people you want to network with? Have you got the right tools? Find a way or a reason to meet again. This is so important. Find a way or a reason to meet again. If I say to someone, you know what, pop me an email, I'll give you this free book. Can you see there's already a connection? Because they won't just remember you in terms of what you said, but you're now deepening and nurturing the relationship. When you're building your network, what are you saying and doing that will guarantee a next meeting with that individual? Especially if it's someone you want to network with. You don't want to network with everyone, okay? Learn how to build rapport. What is rapport? It's connecting, isn't it? Right? How many of you are good at that? Just building rapport with people. We went to some government department yesterday and so on. My wife was just saying to me, my love, I just admire the way you connect with people so easily. Don't be jealous, those of you who don't have wives who say those kinds of things about you. Okay? Don't be so jealousy. It was my husband who taught me how to speak English. But there's some people who are so jealousy. Apparently there was a president's wife who once said that. Okay. So learn how to build rapport. Now here's a key principle, guys. Remember, you might not have been born like this, but you can learn these things. Just like you learned maths, just like you learned English, you can learn these things. How do you build rapport with another human being? The quickest thing is establish common ground. Establish common ground. Remember I said to you, people buy from people they like. Do you know that people like you for different reasons? Often they like you because of similarity. Because the way a lot of people are wired is historical context. If I know that, and some of you, the Zimbos here, who know that Pastor James grew up in Mutare, just because of that, it's like, you see, we are here. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You know, just that. There's that connection, isn't there? That context. Okay. Right? The point I'm making is this. Establish common ground. Have you noticed when you're doing business with people, often they'll say things like, oh, you know what, she went to the same school as my cousin. Oh. Now, what's that got to do with your product? But isn't it funny as human beings we're like that? We went to the same nursery school. Do you remember headmistress so-and-so? Yes. Okay, so what are you selling? Yes, I'll buy. I want to support you. No link. Establish common ground. Overcome shyness. Very often shyness is linked to pride. You know what shyness is? You see, it's one thing to be a quiet person and comfortable with your quietness. It's another thing to always have to kick yourself after and say, I wish I had said this, I wish I had said that. Because it means there's fear operating in your life. And for a lot of us, we've made friends with fear. We've embraced it as part of our personality that that's just me. I'll always be like this. But often you can trace it to a certain root or a trauma. You can. I was helping some people with overcoming stage fright, and I gave them some emotional trigger cards. And one of them said, you know what? I know where it comes from. It was when I was at university and I had to give that presentation, but I'd forgotten my notes at home. But I was still forced to give that presentation. And now I feel this dread just getting in front of people. And I say to some people, what are you afraid of? I might make a mistake. What's wrong with making a mistake? Are you too proud that you can't make yourself vulnerable and make a mistake? You see, brokenness. Can we talk about brokenness? Brokenness and humility means you're already down there. Come on, the Bible tells us, consider others better than yourself. It goes against how the world operates. So I can come up here and I'm completely relaxed talking to you. If I make a mistake, you know what? You shouldn't be disillusioned because you weren't illusioned in the first place, right? It shouldn't be an issue. It's like, fine. But you see, when you operate from a place of pride, you're like, I'm now going to lower myself by making a mistake. If I stumble, I'm embarrassed. I'm a mistaker. And then you label yourself with that. If you study the science of success, successful people are actually comfortable with mistakes. They're not self-critical about them. And so they take more risks. You know, in the restaurant business, it's been found that on average, it only takes off after the 7th time, on average. And that's why you go to with your friends to a mall and you say, let's meet at such and such a restaurant. In fact, it happened with Launceston. When was it? Yesterday. You pitch up there and it's like, am I lost or something? Launceston took me for lunch yesterday. Comes, I was just checking with you. I was double checking. Why are you checking? We're here. No, the name has actually changed. I didn't notice the name had changed. Why do names change? Because other people failed and they couldn't afford the rent in that particular mall. But the people who survive as entrepreneurs are the people who don't give up. They've got what we call grit. Grit is commitment to long-term goals despite the obstacles. And that's what a lot of us need. And some of you have given up on dreams that you shouldn't have given up on, and it's time to rise up again and to redream. Okay? So overcome shyness. Get over yourself. Okay? We're not illusioned about you in the first place. So when you make a mistake, we're like, cool, we all make mistakes. Right? Oh no, I'll fall off my pedestal. Why were you on that pedestal in the first place? And in actual fact, you're not falling off a pedestal because in my mind, you weren't ever on a pedestal. Okay. Make yourself vulnerable. Have you noticed that we're attracted to people who are vulnerable? When your leaders get up and they say like, oh, I made this mistake, or oh, this, and so on, we see the human side of them, don't we? And we're drawn to it. Do you know that you cannot have emotional connection with another human being outside of vulnerability? You can't connect. And that's why some of you in your relationships, you keep that distance, and so you never experience the joy of real human connection, because you don't want to make yourself vulnerable. We're talking about building your network. These are the key things that help us. Vulnerability. Vulnerability. Focus on the other person, not yourself. When you walk into a room and you're wondering, am I appropriately dressed? Will I be accepted or will I be rejected? How will they treat me? Will they pronounce my name correctly? You know, when you've got a name like Nyamuda, you just get used to it. Nyamande, Nyamweda, Nyamudu, Niamude. And we laugh about it in our family, you know. We WhatsApp each other with my siblings. We've got this whole thing. WhatsApp each other. Hey, have you heard the latest? Guys, guess what I was called? All right? But you know what? When you focus on the fact that I've got these personal assets in myself, let's say I know I'm a friendly person. You know what I'm going to focus on? I'm going to go around and say, who's looking lonely and needs a friend? Let me go and comfort them. Let me go and encourage them. There's no room for fear there. But those of you who stand in meetings or sit in meetings with that blank look on your face, guess what happens? People fill in the blank. They'll fill in the blank, and they tend to fill it in with something you don't want. They'll go away and they'll never tell you, oh, she's 3 years away from that promotion she's so desperate for. Oh, she just lacks confidence. Oh, did you see that look on her face? Meanwhile, it was just your thinking face. Did you see that look on her face? Yo! Did you see how she was resisting us? She was frowning. It was just your thinking face. And you're getting a bit older, so of course there'll be a frown. It's okay. Focus on the other people, not yourself. Get over yourself. Learn to listen with empathy. I think when I was preaching here the other week, I spoke about empathy. I'm not going to go deep into that. Master the art of storytelling. Do you know that the person with the most influence at a social gathering is the person who's a good storyteller? And you know what the difference between that person and you is? Or most people? You know what the difference is? They feel their story is worth telling. You've got a story to tell. And the key thing is to keep a repertoire. Have about 15 stories. Repertoire of stories. And try to remember who you've told the story to, because otherwise... Okay? All right? Master the art of storytelling. I'm not going to go deep into this. There's lots of material out there. Often when I'm speaking on presentation skills, I talk about that because people want to hear stories. And you make the story vivid. You color it in very powerfully, right? To land the point that you want to make. For every single statement you want to make to people that you are networking with, have a story that it lands in. And then that becomes very powerful. Amen. All right? Use your knowledge of facts to influence people or to shock them. People love progress. It's one of our basic needs. That's why when you're in traffic, instead of just being still in traffic, you'd rather take a longer route as long as you're moving. People want to feel like they're moving. And one of the ways we feel like we're making progress is learning things, isn't it? Be the kind of person, whether you're having breakfast with someone, whether you're just chatting because you've bumped into them in the mall, you've always got a nugget to share with that person. Like, have you heard about this? Have you seen the latest stats on this? Right? It draws people to you because they feel like whenever I'm around this person, I go to my next level. And they want that. Okay? Make the experience memorable through +1. We spoke about that. All right? Finally, some steps to building your network. Make a list of all the people with whom you want to network. Remember that exercise? People you want to initiate with, people you want to nurture, people you want to rebuild. Make a list of them. Just make a list of them. Then profile those people. Say, oh, is this one a red yellow? Is this one a yellow green? Because when you come up with a strategy of how to relate to the person, you have to be thinking that way. Now, some people say to me, Paul, if I'm so strategic about my relationships, isn't that being false? No. You're actually saying, my relationship with you is so important, I'm going to be intentional about it and I'm going to think through it. Just because I'm doing something consciously doesn't mean I'm being false or fake. Does that make sense? Yeah. If you just go with the flow, you'll never do any great thing. Remember that networking is about giving, not taking. You see, often when people are networking, they're just thinking, what can I get from you? And we think of this sleazy salesperson who's got this polished up presentation, and you can see they want something from you. People say to me, Paul, why do you give away so many of your books? Why are you always saying, just email me and I'll give you this and I'll give you that and so on? Because my primary thing is about influencing. And at a certain point, it ends up reaching critical mass, and I'll benefit from that. But some of you have a scarcity mentality. You can't be a Christian entrepreneur with a scarcity mentality. I think 2 years ago or so, I came here and I did a talk. We spent a morning and I looked at biblical Christian entrepreneurship. And a book came out of that called Kingdom Business. Kingdom Business. If you pop me an email, I'll send that to you. I'd love everyone to have a copy of that, because it explains all those principles Pastor James was talking about earlier on, how we are different because we are Christian. Amen? Okay, don't have a scarcity mentality. Have an abundance mentality. Each time you meet with someone, ask yourself, what am I giving into this relationship? It will come back, not necessarily from that person, in other ways. Because you will reap what you've sown. If you sow sparingly, you reap sparingly. You would think it's ludicrous for a farmer to say, I'm believing God. I'm believing God for a mighty harvest. Shunday, driving my Hyundai. I'm believing God for a mighty harvest. But they haven't sown anything. There's a bit of a problem there. Right? And you know what? What you reap in your harvest is always greater than what you've sown. And that's where the grace is. Okay? So don't say, Paul, that's a works mentality. The sowing is not difficult. You just sow, but you reap so much more. Why not? Okay? Create opportunities to network. What opportunities do you need to create? One of the key things to do is to have platforms. Have a platform. What's your platform? It could be your personal website. It could be some media platform. It could be some speaking engagements that you do. It could be specific mentoring opportunities. Every single person in this room has a platform. The Bible tells us that we are seated in heavenly places with Christ Jesus. How many of you know that there's a place you're seated on? I'm not going to go deep into this, but in the spirit realm, a place of authority. We have places. And we see it manifesting in the natural, those places. And it's amazing when you align yourself to what your place is. So you find what your platform is from God, and then you own your space. You know, what is that thing that I was designed for? You see, the way God creates, he's a bit like an architect, isn't he? If an architect says, oh, do you want a building? What's his first question? What is it going to be used for? Is it an office park? Is it a home? Is it a school? Is it a preschool? And if it's going to be a preschool, let's redesign it so it's suited for preschoolers. What you guys have just done. Does that make sense? Same thing with God. You knew me when I was in my mother's womb. You formed me. I've been carefully, the word that's used there is with great care, he wove you. But in his mind, he had your purpose. So if you try and do what I'm called to, you'll fail because you're not called to the same thing and you're not designed for that. If I try and do what you're called to, I'll fail. I have to find out what's my thing and run my own race. Amen? I always say this to people. Don't compare yourself with average people around you. Compare yourself with to your potential. Where would God have you? Not with average people around you. Okay? Key thing, develop 15 feel-good questions. When you want to build your network with people, let's say we're just talking like this, have feel-good questions. What's a feel-good question? It's not, hey, you know, how's that divorce going? Like, I heard you got divorced. That's not a feel-good question. If I want to connect with someone, and I know, okay, so-and-so is a Liverpool fan, Then I must have some good news if I can find any about Liverpool, right? I might say, hey, it's really great. You guys have got a Christian coach. He's really great, isn't he? Oh, that's wonderful. Hey, yeah, I saw you've just bought so-and-so. That's a feel-good question that gets you in on the conversation, because many of you are laughing, but a lot of you wanted to connect with people this morning, but you didn't know where to start. So I'm showing you where to start. Develop 15 feel-good questions that you can just pull out now and again from your repertoire. Does that make sense? And you're able to connect with people that way. Okay? Remember, it's not about you. The moment people start asking you questions about yourself, answer them, but don't make the whole thing about you. Because people are more interested in themselves than in your whole life story. And then this is something a lot of people aren't aware of. Ask them what is called the anchor question. The anchor question. The anchor question is a question you ask people that causes them to never forget about you. And it's a question that speaks to their self-esteem. You know, when people had interactions with Jesus, he would throw things. He would just go and study the narratives just around how Jesus speaking to people. It wouldn't be a long spiel, except for maybe the Sermon on the Mount when you're speaking to the crowds. But the one-on-ones, very often he would ask them questions that got to the heart of the matter. He would ask them an anchor question, and I believe they would never forget about Jesus. In fact, that man who went away sorrowful, that rich young ruler, who knows? Maybe he was one of the guys who featured later on in the book of Acts because he felt convicted afterwards. What's the anchor question? Anchor question is this. I'm going to give you an example of it. Hey, so I see that although you came from a background as a professor in economics, you then transitioned into investment banking, and you seem to be really great at it and energized by it. Tell me, what keeps you going? That's an anchor question. It's an anchor question because it speaks to the person's self-concept. That, oh, someone actually remembered my journey. Okay? Oh, someone is isolating me in terms of my current emotional state, that I'm energized. And you find that that individual, when they're giving some presentation to some crowd 2 weeks later, they'll say, you know what, a young man was asking me the other day, and they're now quoting you. Okay? So that's very important. That's the anchor question. Give them a reason to want to meet you again. Say your elevator pitch. Remember your elevator pitch? That 30-second thing that's about you. Don't regurgitate your job description, because there's someone else in your workplace with the same job description. Make it an elevator pitch that wows them. Okay? How do you maintain your network? You now know certain people. Sometimes just pop them an email and just say, hey, I was thinking of you, hi. Even on WhatsApp. No reason, no strings attached. We're drawn to people who connect with us with no strings attached. Sometimes you can even automate it. I know one guy, I thought it was a bit dubious. He was an Indian guy. His surname is Naidu, so you won't know who he is. His surname is Naidu. This guy invents stuff, and he moved. He was working for one of the banks, and he moved from Durban to here. And he says, no, I've automated everything. Paul, because, Christian guy, Paul, my mom wanted to know. You know, there's Indian, then there's Indian. Anyway, he says, my mom wanted to know, every day I had to phone her, and she wanted to know I've safely arrived home. This is a grown man, by the way, right? Safely arrived home. So I just invented some software, and I've now automated it. When it comes to birthdays, when it comes to... So one day, his mom will just get a text like, oh, work was difficult today, but I'm now safely at home. Another day, something else. And I said, wouldn't you find it a bit dubious that it's the same time every day? He says, no, I changed the time. Sometimes it's 5:15, sometimes it's 20 past. You know, the ones that are later, it's like, oh, traffic was bad today. I'm like, aren't you going to tell her? Isn't that dishonest? It's like, no, Paul, she's happy, I'm happy. I don't encourage that, by the way. Okay? Give them something. Be generous, give them something. Share news, have family updates, okay? Family newsletter. Introduce a new contact to them. The power of networking. If you want to build your network, introduce those stakeholders to other people that they might benefit from, right? Because they see you as the go-to person as a result of that. Offer them an interesting article. Spread holiday cheer. If you know they're American, hey, happy Independence Day, right? Announce life changes. Oh, there's a new baby. Oh, we've got a new job. Whatever the case may be. If you do all these things and you do them well, you will be a success in life. God bless you guys. It's been wonderful.